Hey y'all, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are when you see this video. Thank you for joining me, Dorothea, on Through an Orthodox Christian Lens. So we're going to be talking about space and lack of space and lack of space and clergy in the Orthodox churches in America. As you know, we're going to go over, as I did a video on this, the growth of Orthodoxy in America, but the challenges that are going on right now. Okay, so let's go to first information here, then I have a little bit of more things to show you, a video and other things. Okay, so I'm going to just read a portion of this. You're already aware of this. I'm just going to read this portion. So this is what Metropolitan Saba has said. He's the leader of the Antiochian Orthodox Christian Archdiocese of North America. He said this in a recent Denver address. I'd posted about that, but I didn't get to all of I did read it, but I'm going to give a little, reiterate it here. He says, some observers liken this influx to a flood, and the comparison is accurate. I do not visit a parish without meeting catechumens there. In some parishes, they number more than 100. While many long-standing believers see in the converts a source of renewal and vitality and a spur to discover their own orthodoxy personally and deeply, not merely as a social religious tradition, many also feel somewhat threatened by the cultural changes occurring in their parish. In a survey of his priests, Saba said, one wrote, "The century of the Church of Immigrants has ended. The century of evangelization has begun. Orthodoxy's mission is no longer primarily geographical, but existential." Orthodox Christianity remains a small flock in America with 2 million to 3 million believers in 2,000 parishes. The Pew Research Center has estimated that globally there are 260 million Orthodox Christians, the next largest communion after the Catholic Church with 1.4 billion. The bottom line, the catechumenate class numbers are staggering. While some Orthodox parishes are shrinking or have hit plateaus, many clergy are struggling to handle congregations that have doubled or tripled in size during the post-pandemic years. Parishes that rarely had catechumens now have 10 or more. Convert-friendly congregations that once had a dozen newcomers now have 50 to 150. Thus, many parishes, especially Sunbelt parishes, have catechumenate classes larger than average mainline Protestant congregations. Wow. For example, a 2022 Episcopal Church report said 85% of its parishes averaged attendance figures under 100. The median figure was 37. Wow, I didn't know that. While the first post-pandemic wave of converts included a high percentage of single men, an even larger second wave has been led by young, growing families, often with multiple children, said Father Andrew Stephen Damick of the Antiochian Archdiocese. Yes, I see that at my little small church as well. He is part of Ancient Faith Radio. We all know that. While many were skeptical of early reports of rapid growth, the trend lines are now clear, he said in a recent American Orthodoxy in 2040 forum. Yes, on YouTube. I also showed you a little clip of that. It's happening, it seems, practically everywhere, he said. Not in every single parish, but geographically there is stuff going on everywhere. Orthodox mission leaders once worried if their new mission congregations would survive, but in this era of growth, it's clear that if you build it, they will come, he said. Saba, who was born in Syria, noted that migrants have continued to arrive in recent decades because of upheavals in Orthodox lands, speaking Greek, Arabic, Romanian, and other languages. Finding the right worship balance is a challenge, with many growing parishes also blending new converts into services. It is clear, quote unquote, we must use the language spoken by the catechumens, yes, which is English. He said, however, many inquirers, especially in Texas, speak Spanish. There is also a growing need to minister intentionally to the African American faithful, and catechumens now increasingly present in our communities. You know, my son thinks that we should have some churches that speak Spanish for the Spanish speakers. Interesting. Many Americans drive long distances to reach an Orthodox parish. Saba said this creates practical challenges and a faith in which intense schedules of worship and fellowship have traditionally been built around clusters of believers sharing villages or neighborhoods in their homelands. Websites cannot replace community life. The Orthodox faith is not an idea, but a lived experience, he added. There is a danger that orthodoxy becomes an ideology. There is a danger that we rejoice in numbers and forget that conversion is a lifetime process of repentance, not numerical recruitment. We must be careful lest today's converts become tomorrow's apostates. This is part one of a two-part article, but that one's not, the second part isn't out yet. But I wanted to give you that information. The next one's going to be out next week, apparently. But anyway, you get the gist of what's going on. And then I'm going to share also, kind of off topic, but speaking of growing, Orthodox population in Ireland has grown sevenfold in recent decades. According to census data, the number of Orthodox Christians in Ireland has grown significantly over the past 2 decades. The Orthodox population has increased nearly sevenfold in the past 20 years. According to statistics from the Central Statistics Office, between 2006 and 2022, the number of Orthodox Christians rose from 20,798 to 105,827, and as of 2025 has exceeded 145,000. The study also notes that between 2016 and 2022, the number of Catholics decreased by nearly 190,000, while the Muslim population grew by 20,000, reaching 83,000 in 2022. So let's get back to what I was talking about. I have a little video here that it's going to bring up this subject matter from Annunciation Greek Orthodox Church in Rochester, New York. So here the priest is going to speak a bit on this struggle and challenge that the Orthodox Church has now come to encounter.
From a parishioner, it is an article that comes from the Union of Orthodox Journalists. And basically what it talks about are two very important things. One of them good, and the other one not so good. So the first thing that the article talks about is that there is a dramatic rise in young men and young families coming into the Orthodox Church across America. So when I was at the APC, the Presbyters Council for the Clergy retreat, we all talked about that there, and each one of us said that we had been seeing very large numbers. So the churches are growing, and this is what the article says. It says that's the good news. Now, here's the not so good news, all right? So if we are to keep up with current trends, the church needs about 100 new priests a year. Wow. Currently, in the seminaries, the top 3 seminaries in America, which is Holy Cross, St. Vladimir's in Yonkers, and then St. Tikhon's, which is in Pennsylvania, we are producing 30 priests a year. So what we've got this wonderful explosion of people who want to join the church, but now we're going to lack the leadership to help guide the people that come into our church, as everybody else here who is cradle Orthodox like myself, to be now also spiritually guided. So what I had wanted to say, or what I would like to say, is that this is a turning point for the Orthodox Church in America. Growing up, I can remember nobody telling me that priesthood was a good calling. In fact, I heard the exact opposite. I heard that, why would you want to become a priest? Why do you want it? Why do you want the pain? Go get a job. They don't pay priests anything. And there's really no need for a priest anyway. There's a couple of guys and they'll stay priest. You don't need to put your wife through that. So the comments that I grew up with were fairly negative against the priesthood. Equally so in America, the outlook to the priest has changed somewhat dramatically, meaning that there is there is an eroding respect for priests. So, and that again comes, and I'm not trying to lay blame on the non-denominational churches here, but the idea is that why are you any better than me? Why do you need to wear all those robes? Why do we need all of this liturgy? So if you combine all of those things together, then young men growing up don't really see a need or don't feel that it's the right thing for them to do. So we are going to create our own situation according to this article, because people are going to come to the church, but we're going to lack the leadership of the church. One of the main reasons why we have altar servers here, and the reason why we have male altar servers, is because this gives our young men and our youth the opportunity to see what priesthood is like, and they get to engage with their parish priest. So this gives them an opportunity to grow and see, hey, maybe this is something that I would like to pursue. Each parish, whether in America or Greece or Romania or wherever it is, every parish has to produce priests. This is the way you sustain the community, because without that, now you end up with priests that you don't necessarily approve of or you don't like. All right, so we need to teach now our young kids about the priesthood. Not every youth is going to enter into the priesthood, but what I will say from personal experience is that if we present the priesthood as something that is positive, which is what my mentor did for me, he changed my outlook. I literally had a metania, a changing of the mind from what I thought priesthood was to what it is. I had somebody in my life that showed me that this is an honorable profession and something to pursue. Now, it came later, and that's wonderful. So there are men in our parish, some of them older, like myself, okay, who have some good years left in them. I got at least a few years left, This is something that the Orthodox Church is going to have to address. You cannot have more converts coming into the church, but you don't have a church that can support them. And so this now belongs to the laity. This belongs to you, that you have to encourage and say that the priesthood is an honorable calling. I would be very proud to see my son become a priest. That's something that we need to say, whether it's to our grandson or to our son or whoever it is. Like I said, not every man is going to follow that calling, but certainly if we don't say anything or we say negative, then we will see the decline of our churches.
Okay, yeah. Great points he's making here. Yeah. And I keep thinking to myself, apparently we were not prepared for this at all. Do you really think we were prepared for this? I don't think we were prepared for this because of what's happening. But I found it very interesting. He said that you need 100 priests. You need to produce 100 priests per year to accommodate this. I mean, it's a good thing that people are coming to the church, but obviously we weren't very prepared for it because, look, we're behind on the clergy. I mean, it's always been kind of a struggle to get enough clergy, at least in the past, few decades, or a couple decades. I've heard it's been pretty difficult, like past decade or more. Right now, he said we have 30 a year. That's 70 short. And so... And I mean, it's interesting that he said that when he was growing up, it was a negative thing. Oh, well, why do you want to do that? They don't make any money. Go get a job that you can, make money in. And, it's stressful. It's difficult, It really is. I mean, yes, you're accountable for the souls that are in your flock, and there's all these issues. It's considered one of the, if not close to, it was like the second most stressful job in, of all. I think it was just, there was one more stressful than that. I can't remember what it was, but it was like second for the priests. So I thought that was interesting, what he said. Of course, there's things in order to, if one wants to become a priest, you have to go through this process. You have to go through the right protocol. So, you'd have to tell your priest, you'd have to do obviously a lot of studying, a lot of attending, and then you would have to be talking with your priest about this, and, and then the priest would have to request, he would have to okay that, and then you'd have to request it to the, a letter to the bishop, and there's all these things you have to go through. And then the bishop has to okay it, and so there's other things, and you fill out all this stuff. But anyway, the only reason I know that is because my ex was trying to get into the priesthood, which he did not make it. And I won't go into why, because it's, personal stuff. And that he was dealing, that's his issue. So anyway, so not only do we have this problem with the clergy, we also have the problem with space in our churches. At least mine is a small, tiny church. It used to be a Baptist church. Back in 2001, they bought the church and obviously renovated it to have the Orthodox structure and design. But it's a small church. And in fact, today, my priest was actually talking about the issue of so many people. I mean, I know like 3 months ago, they took out the back pew, because remember, this was a Baptist church, the pews. They took out the back pew. There's 2 pews back there. Took those out a few months back in order for people to have room to stand in the back. I mean, that's how it's been. It's we really need a bigger place. But the problem with that is we can't build over the property we have now. There's codes, laws, on that, building codes. Can't really get any bigger in that particular property space. And to buy a building, it's a struggle, since we're a smaller church and trying to come up with the funds, and we have these new people, but probably many of them aren't even, probably some of them aren't. I would say we have a lot of new people, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're all in the church right now and that they've decided to become stewards, So anyway, that's the issue, even in my own church. Okay, so this is happening, I'm sure, to other churches. You can fill me in on what's going on with yours if you're in the same type of situation. All I keep thinking about is how unprepared our church was. And of course, now, wherever you are in the diocese, if you decide that, if the bishop okays where you can go to seminary. I was reading comments underneath that post or that video. People were complaining about, they're like, yeah, most young men aren't going to college because it's too expensive, and they need to get jobs, and we can't afford student loan debt, all that. So, there's this thing that's like, okay, when I looked up the 3 monasteries, there's a saying about the monasteries. I can't remember what it is. It's like, if you really want a a theological, I think it was a doctrinal or something like that, theological experience, go to St. Vlad. If you want a spiritual experience, go to St. Tikhon. And then if you want to go to and I forget what the Holy Crosses was, maybe it was academic or something, I don't know. They have 3 different ways of what they're known for, what their specialty is, but whatever archdiocese, whatever jurisdiction you're in, you would go to that one. But having been to Holy Cross, was there for 3 years, and the price is really expensive there. That's the most expensive one out of the 3. I think it was like $23,000 a year. If you go up to an even number from what it says it is for the year. I think it was like 23,000, and I think it was like 14,000 for St. Vlad's, and I'm not sure what it was for St. Tikhon, but I know it was lower. St. Tikhon's is in Pennsylvania, as we said. St. Vlad's in New York. Holy Cross is in Boston, Massachusetts area. In any case, I would suggest you go to St. Tikhon's, really, but that's just my thoughts. I mean, if you actually are wanting to do this and you get the okay, I'm thinking that you could probably go to a different one than in the jurisdiction. I don't know. If anybody's done that, let me know. I know people that have been to both Holy Cross and St. Tikhon's, so that's the only reason why I'm saying that. Let's see. Well, it does bother me that the seminaries are so expensive, because the job is the job of selflessness and and being a servant to your people and leading your flock, and it's not paid a lot of money. And the fact that you have to spend so much money to go to seminary seems a bit off to me. I would think that it would want to be more accommodating and merciful to these people that are coming in, because I do remember there was a seminarian. He was a really kind and humble man, wonderful man. Unfortunately, he couldn't afford. I think he left in the 2nd year. He couldn't do it. It was too expensive. He knew that he wasn't gonna, he was just gonna be in so much debt. He was already, I forget how many, over 100,000 in debt. He was already over 100,000 in debt. And I'm not sure what happened with that. Maybe he didn't get any grants, and maybe he had other debts, but I would assume maybe that's probably what happened. So he had to go. It was sad. Very sad. So, that's what I wanted to share with you on that. And then I'm going to show you this article. I don't know if it's going on with any other jurisdictions, but I did find this. St. Tikhon Seminary receives nearly $1 million grant to expand clergy training. This is in Waymart, Pennsylvania. That's November 17th that was out. So it is part of St. Tikhon's. St. Tikhon's Orthodox Theological Seminary in Waymart, Pennsylvania has received a grant of $920,107 from Lilly Endowment, Inc. to establish a program aimed at addressing the growing need for ordained clergy in the Orthodox Church across North America. I wonder if this is going on with the other churches, the Antiochian, the Greek, the Romanian, whatever. The program, titled Sowing for Plentiful Harvests, Multiplying Vocations Regionally in a Season of Vocational Need, will focus on developing pathways for older second career priestly vocations through 4 key initiatives: strengthening and updating the traditional Master of Divinity curriculum, integrating a diocesan-level satellite MDiv extension, establishing a pre-seminary preceptorship system and enhancing chaplaincy training through the Institute for Clinical Pastoral Education. The Orthodox Church in North America is growing rapidly as the apostolic witness is shared. This growth requires growing pastors and institutions that can serve those who are hungry and waiting for the word, said Seminary Dean Archpriest John Parker. This program is water, spirit, and fertile soil for that growth. Yes, that's a good, great. That's wonderful that they got this. Thank God. The grant comes through Lilly Endowment's Pathways for Tomorrow initiative, which supports theological schools in strengthening their educational and financial capacities to better prepare pastoral leaders for Christian congregations. St. Tikhon's is one of 163 theological schools that have received grants through the initiative since 2021. Okay, here we go. Ortho Christian has previously reported on the Orthodox Church in America and the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of America receiving Lilly Endowment grants. I wonder if they got one recently, and I know the Antiochian Church would need one because they're growing a lot as well. So, very interesting. I just keep going back to, it seems that no one was prepared for this, because they were busy coming over from being, as I said, they immigrated in from places that there's persecutions going on, there's, wars and all this. So they were just trying to keep together and, make their little village churches and all that. So I guess some people are very surprised. They don't know how to, people who are of whatever the roots of where they came from in the Orthodox faith, they feel a little nervous about all these people, but things can work out, and they will work out. I totally believe that. And so, anyway, I hope you got something out of that. Please let me know in the comments if you all, what's happening with the parishes that you're in. Do you have issues with trying to find a bigger space? It just seems like most churches are trying to do that, trying to find, try to build or buy or something, and it's been somewhat difficult. They always have these little campaigns to do that, but particular ones for the building fund, And have you heard anything from your priests on this? Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for following my channel. And if you haven't hit that bell for notifications, please do so, because then you'll be notified right when my videos come out. Thanks again. Have a blessed day, morning, evening, wherever you are.